Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook. Thank you for joining me today. As usual, I'm interviewing a musician who is going to share what he is good at. And for this episode, I am joined by composer Stephen Emmer. His album Mt Mundane is out now, and it was recorded at Abbey Road, includes 15 adagios for piano, choir and orchestra. And although it's classical, it's very much modern music. And I love that connection between classical and improvised music, because sometimes what you're hearing from the composer is what he has imagined rather than what a performer has imagined. Anyway, what you're listening to now is Expedition of the Self, one of the tracks from Mt Mundane. And I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with composer Stephen Emmer.
Hello, Hilary.
Hello, Stephen. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. I love this album. I'm really enjoying Mt Mundane.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Yes, good to hear. Thank you.
that's okay. There's so much to like about it. The music is great. The concept is great. The artwork of the album is lovely.
Ah,
So let's start with, can you explain to my listeners what Mt Mundane is all about?
yeah, it's an invitation to listeners to join my personal life journey, being translated into a musical storytelling, more or less.
Right, because you have experienced tinnitus and partial hearing loss, right?
Yeah, so as a professional musician composer, it's comparable with a street worker overusing his knee on the street doing the cobblings. So I got into trouble with my hearing years ago, and that started to hinder my musical work. So I checked out of my passion for a while, being not able to produce or create music. And I had to take this detour to actually return to what I feel I can do best.
Right. So what brought you back to music? What was it? Was there a sort of a moment that you realized that you needed to come back to it?
Well, yeah, to be a little pathetic for starting off, what I experienced was that I never realized that music was even a bigger part of my life than when I made it without any hassle or problems. So with that realization, I started to look for ways how to return to my first love, music, and what I found out is that, and I think people also within your listeners, presumably or perhaps, people who suffer from tinnitus, they develop a sensitivity uh, for hearing disturbing sounds. May it be the dishwasher being making a noise, or out on the streets, or as in my case, going to loud concerts of types of music that are meant to be aggressive, loud guitars, you name it. And what I started to realize is that that wouldn't be my life anymore. Simply because when you return home, you suffer more from what you already have with the tinnitus. The tinnitus in the UK.
Yes.
What happens is that you try to avoid excessive sounds in your environment. So I didn't go to any concerts anymore. And in the meantime, I thought there's no point in me picking up a guitar making loud music, or indeed doing something which is very rhythm based. a pulse is tiring for the ear if the ear is impoverished. So I started looking for ways how could I still create music without using the horses I knew, drums, guitars, all of that. So I looked for inspiration outside of my own music, being with people who create different kinds of music. So today we can, we can, with the streaming networks, you can even enjoy some of the algorithms of recommendation being sort of curated sound. This might be to your liking. And I started off with a person called Eric Satie.
Ah.
Uh, and Eric Satie did a lot of piano music where I thought, yes, that's soothing for my ear. I don't get an ear fatigue whilst listening to it longer than for 15 minutes. Whereas with rock and dance and R&B and all of these types of music, I couldn't listen for much longer than two or three songs because of the hearing problem. So it was soothing to my ears, and I thought that's interesting. So in the period after that, I got recommended by the digital world we all enjoy online or not, that the recommendations started coming in. So I went over to the French Impressionist music, and obviously I already knew of Ravel. Most people at home know him of his one piece, which he thought not to be real music, called Bolero. But Debussy, I knew of, but I didn't know his repertoire too well. So what I did was I started listening, and what I heard in the French Impressionist music of how long ago is it? 125 years,
Yeah.
is that there is a mildness in it, and it's not strongly driven by by rhythm. It's more melodical. It's harmonical. It's interesting that it first of all was soothing my ears, so I could be a listener once again. And then it started to dawn on me that I perhaps could translate it into my own type of music. And this is where I started experimenting with doing something for me totally out of the box, meaning to create music for woodwinds and for strings and all the orchestra instruments, which are sort of more mild and introvert. And brass, I thought the orchestral brass we know of Wagner is, I found, equally as piercing
Yes.
as the rock music of the Foo Fighters. So I eliminated that, and I started working for woodwinds and strings and piano and tuned percussion. So that's how I got started in being able to compose again, and also over a longer stretch of time. And that's how I started working on this album.
Ah, that's fascinating. I particularly like your treatment of flutes. I think
Hey,
that's really nice. I'm a bit of a flute player and I've been trying to get back into it. And
really?
I picked out some of that was really beautiful. And also some harp.
Yes. Harp is a wonderful, mild piano, and guitar in the middle type of timbral character. And really, my focus was on harmony and a little melody and a little rhythm. That was the pyramid of my mal as where to paint from.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing that you should find a way into music, even with, given a sort of
Hmm.
lack of hearing, less acute hearing. And also, I think you're right. I think it's not about not necessarily being able to hear. It's about hearing things that are disturbing rather than pleasurable.
Precisely. That's what everyone with a hearing problem will agree with. I presume. It's simply recognizable, because there is another symptom which is in Latin called hyperacusis, meaning an oversensitivity. Say you're in a restaurant and somebody at the next table drops a knife from the table onto the floor. Well, most people just continue their conversation, but there are people amongst us who sort of experience that as a comparable as a thunderstorm,
Right.
or auditively speaking.
Yeah.
So that is also what when you start with getting hearing problems, that is usually a, uh, a side effect of that.
At this point in the podcast, I'd like to play a little bit of In Search for Meaning.
Right.
What was your inspiration for writing that piece?
Well, the existential side of life, not to be over philosophical, was that when you're suddenly a kind of a patient, in English, I think it's called debilitated, which I hate that word. It means like I'm sort of an idiot. But but
Yeah.
debilitated means that you're restricted, that you're limited to keep on doing certain things, but the others you have to skip. Well, that brought me to a deeper question, which is, yeah, well, if that is my life from now on, what meaning does it have? What is it? Why? I mean, at one point, I was even advised by the insurance company not to drive my car anymore because it would be dangerous for the insurance if I'd make an accident because of the impartial hearing. So this is where I started to ask myself existential question. Is this quality of life still, which I'm having here with all these handicaps, or is it something else? And I started to read a book about this very subject by an older person, no longer amongst us, I think, called Viktor Frankl. He was a, um, a concentration camp survivor, and he wrote a book about how much can each person endure in his life to still be able to resurrect yourself and get over it, and continue your life. And I thought that was very inspiring. And that book is similarly called as the title of this composition. It's a kind of a tribute to him.
Oh, oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, Right. Can we talk about the album cover?
Please.
Because it's a beautiful piece of art.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that because that is, we share that opinion, of course. But you're the first one to ask about the artwork. And I'm happy to say that though I can think I can compose, I cannot make nice drawings, etc. So what I usually do is look outside of my place for somebody who does. And this in particular was a picture which I once saw in an arts book by a Japanese artist called Rei Morimura. Rei, because he liked an Americanism in his Japanese name. I don't think his real name was spelled Ray. But
No.
anyway, Rei Morimura is a very well-known graphical artist in and from Japan. And what I always like to do, especially in the modern world with technology and all, is to directly approach people I appreciate. So I did so with him. No answer. But then after a while, there was a gallery sending me an email from Tokyo where they said, Mr. Mora, appreciate your words. What can we do for you? We represent him. And I said, well, I would like to ask permission to use this particular picture for him to license it to me for using it as cover art for a musical album about climbing a mountain, the Purgatory. We will talk with Mr. Mura, and soon the word was there. Yes, he likes the idea, wouldn't mind hearing the music first, which I had to do. And it was appreciated and reciprocated, and there you are.
Ah, that's a really interesting story. I love it. I love it when either books or music have a cover which is art in itself. It's more than just
Yes.
an
Yes.
introduction. So that's
Right.
really, yeah.
Also, I made a mistake I find with my very first record, which is way back in 1984, that on the cover there's a picture of myself. But I find that a bit Dorian Grayish to do. So what I stopped doing was that, and I feel it shouldn't be me as a pop star. It should be more in context with what you're trying to say musically.
Yes, definitely. I agree. Now, can we also talk about the technicalities? Now, don't get too technical. The spatial recording. I've been to Abbey Road, and
Right.
I've seen how different orchestras and different producers have, microphones in different places,
Hmm.
and and that's what this is. So this is all about natural spatial recording and Dolby Atmos as well. So
Yeah.
can you talk to me about that in words of one syllable that I will understand?
Of course. Well, Dolby Atmos or the kind of music people today hear in cinema, so maybe when they have a system at home, usually are soundtrack type of albums, and um, it's meant to have a functionality that serves the film's purpose. Now, this is music without a film. We made our own imaginary film about the Mount, the non-existing Mount. And what I thought we should do is instead of what most people do, producing music that is spatial, is they do it as the music industry calls in the mix. And
Yeah.
that means only afterwards. And I've done that myself. I plead guilty for that with an earlier project. And I think it's just not intrinsic enough. What you should do is make more use of technique by introducing it earlier on in the artistic process. So what we did was in Abbey Road, we recorded already with those mics in certain spatial positions instead of simulating that, faking that afterwards when you do the balancing. So we simply moved it one step earlier, involved it in the production process.
Ah, okay. And I can imagine, I mean, I know what those guys are like at Abbey Road. They love that sort of thing, don't they? They love
Yeah,
the kind of the geekiness of it.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one regret I have these days of going to Abbey Road is that they no longer wear their sort of nerdy scientific coats.
White coats, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the white coats, because that's still who they are, uh,
Definitely.
and I love them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Which orchestra did you use?
It's not an entire orchestra with a familiar name, but it's as I said, it's a peculiar studio orchestra without much brass in there. So
Yes.
yes, so it's in between, but however, with an extended tuned percussion uh, unit in there. But it has been recruited from well-known orchestras, the London Symphony, the Royal Philharmonic,
Yeah.
uh, the
Yes.
London Contemporary Orchestra. So they are, let's say, the top players of the known orchestras here for the one event.
Yes, yes, and session musicians, that's what they do, isn't it? They come together and their skill never ceases to amaze me. You can put music in front of them and they just play it brilliantly.
Well, as I am from the land of the wooden shoe, I can easily say that the in the this digital modern abbreviation people now use, and at first I didn't know IMHO, and I thought, what is that? But here I am, in my honest opinion,
Yeah,
I do think that the Brits are the best music readers. It's prima vista.
yeah,
I can easily state that over here in Holland, where I live, most orchestral musicians say we need to practice. I've never
right.
heard that in England. They can play it from the word go, and then even add expression and interpretation to it, uh, even at that very first try they do or take. So
Yes,
I'm highly impressed with that because these days lots of composers go to, because of the costs, they go to, let's say, Hungary, and there's a studio film orchestra there or something. But I have to say that it sounds more run of the mill, more Oxford Street fashion as a
yeah.
comparison.
And I've been into Abbey Road several times when there's been recordings going on,
Yeah,
and you can't believe that they've seen this music that morning. By the
it's
time they've
astounding.
taken, they've done two takes, that's the second time they've read it.
Yeah, it's astounding. And I remember the first time I was there was way back when I was invited to be the composer of the national news music, like say your BBC News music, but over here in Holland.
Ah,
And I did that with an orchestra in Abbey Road Studio 2. But at the time, that was early 80s. Yeah, mid 80s. Um, Everyone just started to work with a computer to prepare the music. And therefore, we could see on the computer little lights going up when there is a movement in the music going on. And when the orchestra played it through, the real orchestra in Studio 2, I watched those little lights on my old Atari computer at the time. And I saw it was 100% sync to what the orchestra was doing, or rather, the orchestra was 100% sync with the computer. And
wow.
that's unbelievable because that's so precise.
Yes, yeah, and that precision, yeah, it means as a composer you've got to get it right first time.
Indeed. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's going to be long negotiations, also with the unions in the UK, because that's a different story altogether.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen that. I've seen the moment where they go, right, we're on a break now,
Yeah,
and they're on a break, and that's what they have to do. Ah, well, thank you so much for joining me to talk about this lovely album, Stephen. It's
thank you
really
so
been a
much, Hillary.
pleasure.
I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me for that episode of Harmonious World with composer Stephen Emmer. And what you're listening to now is Don't Force the Path from his Mt Mundane album. And I think that's probably a very good way of ending, isn't it? Don't force the path. I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation. Please do look at the Patreon site, support the show. I'm an independent podcaster, so I'm the one that's paying for all of this. So any support I can get would be gratefully received. And just share with your friends and rate and write a review. That would be great as well. Thank you so much for joining me once more for Harmonious World. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.